I'm a hustler, baby.
It's time for Hustle Her podcast. I'm your host, Deshae Keynes. Hustle Her is all about inspiring women through real life experiences that have helped to mold and develop not only me, but my guests into the entrepreneurs and leaders we are today. If you're an enterprising woman determined to succeed and looking for a bit of motivation, a bit of tough love, and some actionable takeaways to be the best you, girl, you are in the right place. Hey guys, and welcome back to Hustle Her podcast. Oh my gosh, we are on episode 2 and I am ready to dive right in. My next guest is a graduate of Ryerson Radio and Television Arts program. She has a master's degree from Emerson College Media Arts program. She is the adjunct professor for the Introduction to Media Arts at the Bermuda College, producer of True Space, the podcast. She is an independent filmmaker with her inaugural film, Cameron, a Portrait. She has a love for visual storytelling, technology, visual art, modeling, and overall wellness. She is the founder and creative director of LDS Multimedia, a Bermudian film production company specializing in documentary, commercials, corporate video, weddings, animations, events, stage performances, voiceover recording, talent, and local fixing. Wow! Some of her clients are the Bermuda Tourism Authority, HSBC, Red Bull TV, Talbot's, New York Magazine, Team Oracle USA, just to name a few. And not only does she do all of that, but she's my lovely friend.
Yay!
Welcome, Miss Lara Smith.
Thank you so much. What an amazing welcome. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, good.
Very full. I feel very blessed to be here for your podcast. So thank you.
I'm so happy that you're here.
Yes, so am I.
Like I was telling you before we started recording, I'm actually very nervous. I am.
Don't be nervous. No.
You're like the, recording extraordinaire. And it's just like I couldn't even get the computer to record a minute ago.
Yes, so but we're straight now. We're good now.
We're good to go.
Yeah.
So Lara, tell me a bit about you. How did LDS Media come about?
Of course. So LDS Multimedia is definitely like a journey. When people ask me, well, how did you get into this? And why? And how did it all begin? I always feel like it sounds so cliche to tell people that it actually began when I was 13 years old. I was young. I was the one who, I went to school at Bermuda High School for Girls when I was here, and I remember the librarian was throwing out old tape recorders, and he's like, oh, does anybody want this? And I'll be like, I'll take it. And everyone's like, why do you want that? And I would take it home and I would try and hook up a microphone to it and start recording at 13,
Really?
14, yeah, that kind of age. And then I just took a liking to really just recording video. And one summer I saved up all this money because I got really into video at 13 years old. And I remember I was taking my sister back to boarding school, and we went to a Best Buy, and I took all the money I had saved and I bought my first video camera. It was a Panasonic. It took mini HD.
Was it one of the big ones?
No, it wasn't big. It was small. It was mini DV tape.
Okay.
And so when people say, how did you even get here? Well, it started then, and the evolution has just been ever since. It's I remember recording music videos with my cousins, and like I said, I was into the Talk Boy technology, and we would have radio shows, and I'd be directing them, and it's so crazy to say, look at where it's come, because now I'm actually living out the things that I didn't necessarily think I would be, this filmmaker with a company. I just knew I enjoyed doing these things, and they just took off from there. So, yeah.
So tell me about your parents. How supportive were they? Did they want you to go into media? Did they understand what that was?
So I have to say that my parents have always been supportive. I think that because my dad was very into photography as when we were growing up, we have I know we all do have pictures of our childhood, but I feel like we have so many because he always had a camera, and I don't know if that played an influence on it, but I saw that growing up, and like they were all just extra supportive of like the journeys that I was taking, to the point that my mother actually wanted me to look into these programs at school, because I was in boarding school and I was looking at what undergrad degree I should take and what journey I should do. And my mom was the one who actually said, well, Ryerson University has a really great program called RTA, and she knew I was interested in that kind of stuff. It's radio and television arts. So I was like, okay, well, so we started looking into it. And then it just took off from there. I was like, yeah, okay, I think I want to do this as my undergrad. And that's really how it all sort of began.
Really? So for you, for me, what I remember most about you, when I first met you was obviously through Nija. And I remember Nija showing us all these old videos of you guys when you were younger. And honestly, I didn't know at the time that this is what you wanted to do. And so now it makes so much more sense that you had the camera the whole time. And it reminds me of the Kardashians a little bit. Because
a little bit.
How they have all those recording videos from when they're younger. And I'm very envious of that, because like my parents, we do not have videos. We have tons of pictures, but no video at all.
It's so weird. Like my dad always says, like, oh, Lara, you're the preserver of the family. You know, you're the one that's going to have all the, you know, you preserve all of the memories. And it's kind of true, like, because what now is called vlogging is actually what I used to do when I was 13.
Wow.
And when you go and look back at the mini DV tapes, I actually digitized them all last year. So I have them all on a hard drive now. But when I go back, it's really just like day in the life. I would record what I'm up to, what I'm doing, interview people that I was close to. Vlogging, like just doing my day-to-day thing. And it's just so crazy to think that's an actual like lucrative income now for some people. But even just thinking about like the beginning, my parents also like immersed me in a lot of like ad agencies back in the day in Bermuda. So I did like KBB.
Oh, wow.
I was like not a kid.
Is KBB still even a thing?
Yeah, Keep Bermuda Beautiful.
Wow.
So I just remember doing a campaign, and there was an agency that kind of recruited models, kid models. And I remember vividly doing, it was a tourism ad. It was called Bermuda Colors. Have you ever seen it?
I remember.
I have it.
Yes.
I have, if you want to see it.
Oh my gosh, you did that?
I did. Well, I was in it, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I was in it. And I just remember being a part of this production as a kid, probably at like, I was maybe 8. And I just remember thinking it was the coolest thing ever. Like, and when people say like, oh, what ignited you? I really believe that like that was one of the things that was a building block to, we had an early call time. It was like 7 a.m. We had to be on the beach. We had to like carry buckets of paint. And I just remember like having the camera crew. It was a helicopter. Obviously drones didn't exist.
No, not at all.
So the helicopter came and got a shot of all the kids. I have to show you the video, but it's cool. So it's cool to see like, back then I was like really like enamored by it. And then it was the evolution of me like being interested in audio recording and then video and then studying it. And then next thing you know, going to grad school. But so yeah, that's pretty much the evolution.
Wow.
I would say.
So when you're in grad school and you're like, okay, great, I'm about to graduate.
Yes.
I'm going to have this amazing degree. I'm going to be able to do what I wanted to do growing up. What did that look like to you? And what did you see yourself doing at that time?
So grad school, I would say, would be the pivotal point for me. So undergrad is great. And I did radio, television arts, and I got a minor in English. And it's a great foundation. And you can say, you know, you can learn take all the electives. But then grad school was like streamlined. So I decided I really wanted to do documentary production. Like that was the thing that I was like, I think this is what I want to go into.
Right.
And I just knew like after doing my thesis project and making it into the film that it was and going and submitting it to Biff after I was done, like I just felt like it was like my steps were ordered.
Right.
It just felt so organic. And at the time when I was giving my film to be submitted to Biff for consideration, I remember I was being made redundant from the job that I was in here. Like at a media company here, I worked for 3 months and I got made redundant, and it all happened like in the same time frame of you know, Biff wanting to accept the film and me buying a camera. I remember, you know, doing all these things where it was just like my steps, I felt like were being ordered into the next step is to start your business. You know, it wasn't any particular thing. I just think everything was just like pivoting me into being my own boss.
Right. And so after you were made redundant and this film is now at Biff, because I remember it was sold out.
Yeah.
Like I remember, and I didn't actually know you then at the
I
time.
know.
And so I remember hearing about the film because I used to sit on the Biff board.
Yes.
And it was just like this young Bermudian is back. She did this amazing film.
Yeah.
And she said, I remember being sold out and people were like trying to come. So it was amazing then, right?
Yeah.
So you're on this high from Biff,
Yes.
right? And you're being made redundant at the same time.
Yep.
So then you said your steps are being ordered into becoming an entrepreneur. So what was the final turning point where you were like, I can do this. I can be my own boss.
So people on the side were having me, like I was doing projects on the side, like outside of the company that I was working for. So I remember I had done a promotional video for a friend at the time, and I remember doing this video for them, and I remember people saying, "You did this? Oh, okay." And then another person had asked me to do another video for them. So I was still like doing my passion thing on the side. And it just was like, well, why are you not doing this full time? So like I said, everything came together. And I remember Digicel. It was one of my first major clients, maybe that same year. Yeah, I think it was. And they had called me and said, we know that you're back and we've seen like what you've been doing. Like, how do you feel about shooting the Digicel summer reel? Because remember Beach Fest? Because at that time, that was our age that we wanted to be at Beach Fest. And I remember them saying, okay, well, you can come and we want to have you capture our Digicel, because they huge branding, right? So I remember
big red everywhere.
And that was in the time of like, I want to say, was it Be Extraordinary? Not quite Be Extraordinary, but
right before
that, and everything was big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything was red. They gave out T-shirts, all the big ads and marketing campaigns. Yeah, I remember all that.
So it was around that time, and it just started from there. And then I booked Digicel, and then Digicel, and then from that it was a different client, and it just grew, and momentum picked up, and then next thing you know, it's like I'm booked and busy, right?
Yeah. So you were booked and busy before that was a hashtag.
Yeah, exactly.
That's hilarious.
Yes.
So so great. You do all this corporate work, and you did the independent film.
Yes.
So how did you get into the weddings?
Okay, so the weddings, it was an interesting thing because I was doing a little bit of work with Great Sound and Lighting, which is a local stage production. They do sound, lighting. They are amazing. They're like the front runner for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And the guys over there knew that I was into film. We were actually, at the time, we both had the same cameras, and they were looking for camera people as well. So I remember them being like, oh, okay, like, oh, we see what you're doing out there in the field, and that's really cool. And, we have this wedding coming up, and it's a destination wedding. Like, how do you feel about shooting weddings? I said, well, what do you want me to turn it into? And they're like, no, we just need the footage to be handed to the client. They're going to take it back to New York with them.
Right.
I said, okay, great. I already knew how to use their camera. Like I said, we had the same equipment. So I was like, okay, no problem. I'll shoot it. And he started to tell me about these people, and obviously they must be high society. Chelsea Clinton was at that wedding. I mean, this is my first wedding in Bermuda.
And Chelsea Clinton was there?
Chelsea Clinton was at the wedding, and I'm like, what is this? And so, like, again, step is being ordered, and I ended up shooting it, and it was a great experience. The footage was great, like, and I remember saying, I was like, I know I'm going to hand them this footage, but would it be okay if I use this footage to edit my own sort of reel, just to see how I feel about weddings? And they were like, sure, as long as you keep it private, you can show it to potential clients or customers, but you can't promote it. I said, okay. So I took that footage and I made this recap thing. And I just remember feeling like, okay, this is something, I have something here, even just from shooting that one wedding. And I just started to put the pieces together, and I showed it to the guys at Great Sound, and they were like, this is amazing, this is great.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, maybe I have something, maybe I'm onto something here. And that's how the wedding thing began. Like, it wasn't something that I said, okay, I think I'm gonna be a wedding filmmaker. It was more or less like, I dabbled in it, and then I realized, like, oh, I think this is actually something that I could potentially do.
Wow.
And that's how it was birthed.
Yeah. And so at that time, how many other wedding videographers were on the island? Do you remember?
So I believe, like, I just remember, like, there's people who have been in it obviously before me. So there were a few major players, like, that were doing it full time, that were booking the bulk of the work and things like that. And I had seen them out in the field working and things like that, but I'm not even sure. Even to this day, I think there's many that I don't even really know about. More and more people are getting their hands on cameras.
Absolutely.
But at that time, I don't necessarily know how many, but I know there was a few out there.
So in your training, and you've done all this stuff in school, you have everything, that the tools that you need to be at the top of your game, because you are, because you're being very modest in terms of the weddings and everything, right? So we all know, Lara, you do amazing weddings. So how many weddings do you average a year?
So if I had to average of all the years I've been doing weddings, it might be like somewhere in the 20s. But the largest number of weddings I had was in 2018, where I had 32 weddings.
Wow.
That was the most weddings that I could ever imagine. I don't know if I'll ever surpass that number, but 2018 was the year where it was just like, okay, this is insane. It was I didn't socialize. Like, Saturdays were wedding days. Sundays I was recuperating because it's hot in the summer. You know, wedding season. It's labor. And I just remember just having my head down. Like, people are on boats rafting up, and I'm there.
I get
tired.
I get it.
You know.
I totally understand.
You understand.
So tell me, how do you balance wedding season and then all these amazing corporate clients as well?
So the good thing with what I do with the filmmaking, it's great because weddings typically happen like Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Okay.
You know this, like more or less people are getting married on Saturdays. So it's nice because I can take some of the corporate work in the week and scatter it out and do some days in the week to edit the films, the wedding films, some days to shoot the corporate work. But it's quite a little hustle if you really get in it, right? You know, it's like you can balance it where you're booking XYZ on this end of your spectrum, and then you're booking the weddings and maybe a little bit of commercial work in there too. So yeah, it's a balancing act. It really
definitely
is. Yeah.
So obviously I'm an entrepreneur as well, right? So how do you balance I need to take all this work, but I still need to make time for my family. I still want to see my parents. I still want to see my niece and my nephew.
Yes.
I have my mom calling me and being like, I haven't seen you in 3 weeks. So how do you balance that entrepreneur life of, I've got to make this money to pay the bills, but it's also something that I love to do, but also spending time with family,
people,
your friends.
and even friends.
Yeah. And how do you balance that?
Honestly, you have to, I'm looking at your calendar right now. Don't look at my calendar. You have to everything has to go in the calendar for me. Like, even on days that I know I have to edit something, I put it on the calendar.
Gotcha.
Because if I don't, it won't happen. So even if it's like, okay, I need to dinner with parents, I'll put it on the calendar because I need to visualize it. So at least I know, okay, I'm having dinner with them tonight. Then I can say, oh, I'll do something in the morning, and then I'll make sure I'm done my work or my editing by like 4, and then I have time to get ready or whatever it is. But yeah, it's definitely something that I think you just, for me, it's plotting it on the calendar.
Absolutely.
If not, I feel like it just doesn't. It won't happen for me. Every little thing goes on the calendar for me. Even like call Deshay about podcasts, like, or follow up. But you know, it's just like
if it's not on the calendar, it doesn't exist.
So for me,
seriously.
I know. So the calendar thing is key for me. So yeah.
So, and then balancing the personal life with the work as an entrepreneur. Like, I don't know about you, but for me, I'm single. I don't date, and you know, I shouldn't say I don't. Don't laugh at me now. I should say, like, you know, it's difficult, right? Especially during wedding season, because you need someone who understands.
Yes.
Right. So, do you find that to be difficult?
You know, it's like you get some people who are like so amazed at what you're doing and they want to ride on the coattails of that. And then there's others that might feel intimidated, you know, looking at you like, oh my gosh, all she does is work. Like, what is that? So it's definitely, and then when you think about like masculine and feminine energies, you know, masculine, a girl who works hard, that might be deemed as a masculine trait. I mean, it depends on how you look at it. Yeah. But I think that women are definitely emerging into boss roles and being more of their own bosses. And if that's perceived as a certain way, then I don't know what to say. But you definitely get a spectrum when it comes to dating. You know, you get people that say all kinds of things.
Yeah, no, I completely. You're preaching to the choir over here.
You
girl.
know,
I completely understand. So when you're getting new clients, is it a referral thing for you? When it comes to new clients, how do you market LDS Multimedia.
Right. So it's interesting because I would say that it's more of an online / social media thing, not in the sense of sponsoring posts and having lots of followers, but more or less people who you do work for who post your work and tag you or post it and make reference to your name and then you repost it, or something as easy as just someone asking them, who did that for you?
Right.
Madge's list. I mean, here in Bermuda, we have online forums. Oh, need a videographer.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's that kind of stuff that works for a small community like Bermuda, because everyone's in tune. It's like you get like one person asking a question and you get like 30 answers.
No, 100%.
And then out of those 30, you might get like 10 people who said your name or 5, and then people are like, who's that? And then they go and do their research. And so a lot of word of mouth, a lot of like social online sort of networking, I feel is what works best for me. Not necessarily like ad billboards around town or
I get what you mean.
it's more or less the community aspect of it, referrals and things like that.
So that's local here in Bermuda.
Yes.
And we know you're big time, Lara. So you have all of these, international clients. So how do these international companies hear about you?
Well, part of it is from what you do too. It's the networking with other wedding professionals. I think that's the really important part when it comes to weddings, is you have to understand too, even if you're just getting into this or maybe you're interested in, how do they make it work? It's collaborative, you know, like the photographers might refer you, the wedding planners might refer you, they might Google Bermuda wedding videographer, and that's how they get you. So again, the tools of the online thing come into it, and even just like listings on whether it be tourism related sites for Bermuda, having a presence there and just keeping your website up to date, keeping current, and sometimes referrals even from people that are overseas.
Okay.
Just recently I had done a wedding. Well, not recently, but in 2017, I did a couple from New York, a wedding.
Okay.
And I recently did some more work for them this year.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so it's definitely, it's nice to have the international clients coming back for more work. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. No, that is amazing, because it's just like your work is what's out there, right? And it's really good. And I'm not just saying that because I'm your friend.
Yes.
I mean it.
Thank you.
For full disclosure, I try to use Lara as much as possible.
Yes.
She's always our go-to.
Likewise.
We share some clients.
Yes, we do.
That we love, and some that we need to love more.
Yes. Hey, this is how it goes. So
it just is how it is. So no, Lara, your reputation on island and overseas is very well known, right? So and you do great work, and I think people know that. And so what is something that motivates you to continue to do this every single day? Like, do you wake up one day like, oh my God, I just don't want to do this wedding today, or I don't want to go into this? Like, what keeps you motivated to wake up and do this every single day?
Absolutely. I'll say that the thing that motivates me is human emotion. So the reactions that people get from what I can create for them is what keeps me going on it, right?
That's awesome.
So for weddings, when people say, oh my God, we bowled, or we this and that, I'm just like, I get really emotional myself, because I'm like, this is why I do this, because they feel really attached to the work, and they feel like you've created something for them. And I'm in the business of preserving memories, creating stories, evoking emotion. And so for me, when someone's like, we bought, I'm like, really? So the more I get of that, I'm like, okay, I don't know what I did for you, but that's what keeps me going. So, and even just like, for like, with weddings, the groom, my favorite part of the wedding is the groom's look as the bride enters the church.
I know, same.
It's the best part.
It is the best part.
It tells the whole story.
It does. There's so many times that I have the earpiece in and I'm staring at the groom, and someone's in my earpiece and they're just like, Deshay, right. And I was like, oh yeah, I gotta jump back in. Because it's such a moment.
It is.
You know what I mean? And I know this may sound bad, but
Yep.
it's like one of those things where I can tell if they're really into each other or not, or
Oh my gosh.
like how much love is there. And
Yep.
you can feel it.
You
like
can feel
as
it.
many weddings as you've
100%.
probably done, as many weddings as I've probably done. I still get goosebumps,
Yep.
you know, with
Yep.
the different weddings that you do.
Yep.
So no, I completely understand the look.
It's the look, and it's like sometimes even with the speeches, not to just be so much on the topic of weddings, but because it's such a big part of what both of us do. You know, even sometimes I find myself tearing up, and I'm like, sometimes because I'm listening to like what kind of story that I'm going to be dealing with in the edit, I'm listening to the speeches. I'm like, this is so good. Like, I love a good wedding speech because that for me, I'm like, oh my gosh, they just gave me the best thing to edit with.
I know,
right?
I love the good speeches, but then we've had some bad ones too. We've had some long ones.
Yes, we have.
We've had some long ones as well. So out of all of those things that you do, right, what are some of the things that you fear as an entrepreneur still to this day? I know for me, I wake up and, you know, we have these businesses, but there's still things in the back of my mind. So what is something like, it may not be fear, but what do you classify that as?
I always feel like I'm not doing enough. As crazy as it sounds, people say, well, you're so busy, and why do you feel like you're not doing enough? I do get those feelings where I'm like, should I be diversifying myself in my business more? You know, should I be offering, let's just say, for example, photography? Like, am I selling myself short? Should I be doing more? Should I go into graphic design? Like, I'm always thinking like, okay, am I selling myself short? Like, can I be more than what I already am? And I'm always thinking about, like, I guess you could say, quote unquote, fearing maybe I'm not doing enough. I don't want to get to the end and be like, you should have done that, or you could have done that. So I think like my biggest fear, so to speak, would be feeling like I haven't fulfilled everything. Right. Like haven't done to my standing, I guess.
No, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
So then how do you manage that? Like, how do you manage those, you know, those things that go on in your mind and you're just like, you know what? I don't know about you, but some of those things keep me up at night. And like, literally, I'm just like, could I have done that better? Could I have done that a different way? How do you manage that to still push forward every single day?
I think I just put things into perspective. You're like, okay. If you know, you're busy with this, and this, you don't have time to work on some of these other things. So it's like prioritizing. So it's saying, okay, well, maybe dress back on some of the work here, and then you can do some brainstorming on some other things. Or, you know, once you have filled your quota of this much work for corporate or commercials or whatever it is, then say, okay, I'm not taking any more of this work. I'm going to focus on this. But we all say it, and then it ends up where someone says, can you shoot this for me, or can you shoot that for me? And then we end up, you know, we end up taking it because, again, this is something else that I know for me is something that many entrepreneurs go through, saying no. And being like, you know what, I cannot take it. I would love to, but I'm swamped. And I've recently in 2019, 2020 have gotten better at that because you can't take on the world, right?
Yeah, because then the work starts to subside, right? And then you're not producing
to your quality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So no, I completely understand that. But then you, on the flip side of it, it's just kind of like if I don't take this work, 6 months down the line, a year down the line, when that person needs something else, are they going to come to me?
Exactly.
Right. So it's such a tough balancing act. I haven't gotten it. So I'm glad you're starting to say no.
No, I understand because you know it's all about client relationships. That's what keeps, especially in a small community like Bermuda. So you don't want to sever ties with anybody ever.
Not at all. No, you know? I completely understand. So tell me about, like, what would you say is your greatest achievement as an entrepreneur so far? Was it a big client that you landed? Like, what would you say is your biggest achievement so far as Lara Smith, but also LDS Multimedia?
So the biggest achievement, let's see. I think it's a culmination. I think that it depends on what I'm doing, or at the time, like sometimes completing projects in a way or completing a work in a way that I didn't even think I could do. Like, okay, like I'm like, wow, that really came out great. I didn't anticipate that. Like for me, it's the little things. So it's like, if I can complete something and do it above what I had expected, that's an achievement.
Gotcha.
If I can surpass like the number of weddings I did in the previous year, that's success for me too. So when it comes to success, so when we were in lockdown, I took an online course at Yale, The Science of Wellness, which I completed over 6 weeks.
Okay.
Laurie Santos was the professor.
Yeah.
And what a lot of it was learning about is how we miswant things as humans in our brains. So in our brains, we think that success is making X amount of money, having the ring, having the big house, having the company, and all of these things. And in actual fact, those are not the things that make us happy.
Not at all.
You know, and the things that make us happy are in the micro things that we do. So whether it be, it sounds so cheesy, but like helping someone out, or teaching your intern something, or making strides to a project that you knew you wanted to do. So it's the little things that we actually miss out on that are what fulfill us even more than we thought would. So I learned that actually through lockdown. I'm like, this is the perfect course that I need to take, because it really put everything into perspective for me, because you think you know what's going to make you happy and feel like you've had the successes, right?
Yeah, and then also during lockdown, as an entrepreneur, you're probably looking at, I don't know for you, but you know, all of the things that you're not going to be making, the money that you're not going to be making. So I'm assuming that course kind of helped put things back into perspective.
It did, and I'm glad I was able to even have the time to take it, because like it made me realize that like true success is when you're like operating in what you believe is your purpose, and how you can combine your passions and like where you are in life. And I feel like, I don't know if you've ever felt this, but the journey of like your career and where you are from where you used to be to now, you feel it in yourself. You're like, wow, like I can't believe like I've achieved the things that I have in the span of time that I've been doing this. And I think like when you can feel like you're on the right journey to your life and your purpose, I feel like that's success in itself.
And it reflects in your work as well, right?
Yes.
So when you're happy and, you know, you're enjoying life and you're really kind of taking it in, like smelling the roses, as they say. You know, yeah, cheesy, but, you know, you get it. I think it produces in other places. And I know for me, it's like when I'm appreciative of my life and the things that I have going on, I'm happier about the things that I'm doing for other people when it comes to work. Yeah.
100%.
So, no, I completely understand that. I mean, shelter in place put a perspective on life.
It did.
Especially here in Bermuda.
Oh my goodness.
It was like what was it, 4 weeks?
It was 4 weeks.
That's crazy.
Of sheltering right where you are, sitting down and just doing nothing. And that's the thing too. Everyone was like, this is the perfect time for you to work on more creative projects. But at the same time, it's like, it's also time for you to just reflect.
That too, I 100% agree with you. I think, you know, for me, well, you get it too, right? So you get wedding season, like for us, you know, April to wedding season extended now. So like October, November, you're just going, like you said earlier. So for me, while I was like thinking about the money and stuff, and you're just like, oh wow, like I'm not making this money this month. It was also a time to like kind of sit back. Like when we came out of shelter in place, I was going and having dinner with friends and family. You know, I was spending time. I was working on myself. So I mean, shelter in place, if you kind of look back, it sucked. You know, like COVID is not good, but you know, at the same time, it helped in other ways, which I think not everyone kind of looks at.
Oh, 100%, like putting everything into perspective and realizing what is truly important, your health and your well-being in a time of a pandemic, or scurrying around to try to make money that you know you'll make up for later, you know, and it just puts it in, especially for the entrepreneur types that are always on the go. It's like, it's okay to take this time and just reassess. And even like plan maybe, okay, well, what am I going to do when I do get back out to work? And
No, I was just about to say that. Like, how has things kind of pivoted for you now that, you know, we have, things aren't the same. We're not doing those big 150, 200 weddings anymore. You know, even corporate stuff, conferences that we've done together, those things aren't happening anymore. So how does that pivot for you as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, well, surprisingly, when it comes to the corporate stuff, because everything's becoming virtual and they still need the high quality and the streaming. So in that end, I've done a couple of sort of virtual projects. So it's been good because we've pivoted in a way where it's like, okay, now we're not actually at the event, but we're still filming people and
Got it.
streaming it live. So I've had some success in that arena, but obviously for the events and things like that, the other events like the weddings and things, I mean, no, I mean, I did do some this year. That I've had a few, but it's definitely not on the scale of 2019 or any other year.
Not at all.
But a lot of people are enjoying the fact that they're doing the abridged, sort of smaller, condensed weddings, and they're gonna do their big reception next year.
Well, I mean, it works. I think everything will come back at some point. I think life as we know it has changed permanently in certain aspects, but I think it'll come back around to what we know and what we're used to.
Yeah.
So if you had to go back, right, and you are wherever you feel your entrepreneurial journey started, if you had to go back, what would you do differently, if anything?
If I had to go back, what would I do differently? I often think about like when I came back from graduating at Emerson in Boston. I came straight home because I had done 9 years away from Bermuda. And I was like, okay, I think it's time now for me to be home and try the home thing. And if there's anything that I probably would change, I may have stayed in the States longer and worked in the industries out there in Massachusetts or maybe New York or maybe LA or something like that. And I think that if I would have done that, my entire trajectory would have changed. Like nothing would have been ordered in the way that it was in coming home. So I do think about that a lot. I'm like, looking at my peers who I graduated with, some of them went off to like work for Disney and bigger companies. Like one girl was from Africa and she worked for a big production company down there. And so everybody was kind of going their ways, but then equally they're looking at me like, but you went your way. And you're in Bermuda and you're starting your own company. And so it's all about like perspective, right? Because they think I'm doing it and I'm thinking they're doing it. And so when I think about what I would change, I don't know. I may have stayed longer, but at the same time, I don't think I would have had the journey that I was telling you about earlier.
And you may not have ended up,
yes,
here to where you are.
Exactly.
So what would be some things that you say if someone is, at work and let's say they have a similar journey to you and it comes to being made redundant, right?
Oh,
and
my
they
goodness.
have this skill that's been honed and, they have the education or things that they need. What would you say to that person actually to kind of help them get over that hump into full-time entrepreneurship? Yeah.
I would say start where you are. Like a lot of times, like when I'm out shooting on different projects with like my big Sony FS7 camera, which isn't even that big, but compared to the many DSLR cameras that are on the market that most people have, when they see me shooting on that, they're like, oh my gosh, you're really big time and you have this huge camera and oh my goodness, how much does that cost? And they're interested in getting into film. And I'm just saying to them, like, you don't need a camera like that to start with. You can start with what you have. So if someone feels like, oh, they don't have the equipment, you can get a consumer or a prosumer camera that doesn't cost doesn't break the bank, and you can start there. Start shooting content, start editing content, putting it out, see what people think about your style, start creating a style for yourself, and your own style. And I guarantee that you being made redundant, you'll start getting people saying, can you shoot my niece's baby shower?
Right.
Can you do a birthday party for me? Oh, I want a promotional video for my business. And people will start knocking on your doors. And now we're in the age where you can promote yourself everywhere.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So
Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok.
TikTok. That's the new one, right? So it's even like
we sound you. I just got a quick pause. We sound like old ladies. That's the new one.
but if you think about it, like that's not really our generation.
I know.
It's not. We're not the TikTok generation.
We're not. I tried to get into it, but I can't.
It's not us. Like no. It's fine, but. So if someone is being made redundant and you feel like you're young and you still have time, then I would say you can make a name for yourself. You don't need necessarily a company to keep you booked and busy. You can keep yourself booked and busy. You just have to have an eye and be able to know what you're doing. And with enough experience, yeah, you get the momentum and you have a brand.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
So if for what you do,
Yeah.
do you think it's possible to still be working full time and do this on the side, or is it being in multimedia something that you need to commit to full time all the time?
I feel like I would say it's something that you should commit to all the time, personally, because I feel like once you have a job 9 to 5, now there's nothing wrong with having a job 9 to 5 and then doing it on the
Girl,
side.
do not be Simone here today.
Right. But I feel like you should just throw yourself in it.
Yeah.
Because you'll never really know your true potential. And who you could be booking and like what type of work you could actually be getting, because maybe you're a great photographer or videographer, but then the client that needs you can't book you because they need you Wednesday at 11 a.m. to 4 and you can't do that. And then you lose out on a potential client that could really boost your portfolio. And so I feel like in order to like really get the work under your belt or on your resume, you have to go full time, because that's when the work really does come.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I guess for me, I get access all the time. Like, what did you do, right? Like, is there a formula to becoming successful? Because, you know, you're doing it. Let's own it. You're successful and you're right. You're at the top of your game. Yeah. You know, when people mention, you know, I need a videographer, I need someone to do this, you know, LDS Multimedia definitely comes up in the conversation. Yeah. So when you think about that, is there a formula that we can kind of throw out there to people listening today to be like, hey, 2 + 2 = 4, and this is going to kind of get you where you need to be? Or is it just more of like a hard work thing?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think that entrepreneurs in whatever industry you're in are problem solvers. So you have to figure out, you know, what can you solve in a certain area that is going to make you money, right? And so for me, I'm like, you know, you have to pick the things that you know you could thrive in and that you could become somebody that, like you said, be sought after in a certain way. And I think that also it's not really a formula, but it's another thing to think about, and that's the customer and client relationships that you build. Because I read something the other day and it was saying how like good customer relations turn your customers into your clients. And they're your repeat clients. They're not just a one-time customer. They're somebody who's going to come back to you. So I feel like if we want to talk about a formula, you definitely have to look at how you talk to your clients, how you treat them. Who are they to you, and why do they value you so much to get your services? Why do you value them as a client? And I think once you can establish like a rapport there, that's a really good formula to success, because then that client is going to then tell another person, she's amazing to work with. Like, you know, you will have a great experience, you will have no issues, but that's because you honed in on that rapport that you need to build. So I think that's important too.
Yeah, no, that's, I mean, that's amazing when it comes to the client relationship portion of it. Like, it's great to have one-off customers, but to have clients who continuously come back to you, that's the best. You learn their style, you figure out what they like, what you like, how you work well together, and then you actually produce better content
100%
for that particular client.
100%. And you learn from them as well. Like, even just by working with different marketing people on the island in different companies, you learn about their style too, about their messaging. Whereas when you're like, I can think of one particular client, I got so used to working with their marketing team that I almost did what I knew they were going to tell me to do. Like when I send the edit, I already knew the critiques. So you end up doing those edits while you're editing, and you become a better editor because you're going to be like in your mind, okay, I know she doesn't like when someone says too much, so let's chop that out already. And then you end up picking up their skills as well, and then sending it back to them. They're now even happier because like, we hardly have any change, because you start to adopt their style, and it's cool.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess as we wind it up a little bit, so what are some of the things that you stay on top of in terms of trends? Like, what are some of the blogs that you're following?
Oh, of course.
Books you're reading?
Of course. So I'm a huge like media person when it comes to what I'm listening to and where I'm getting my information. Like, I love podcasts. I'm a huge audiobook person. I know like a lot of entrepreneurs read entrepreneurial books. I'm a huge Gary Vaynerchuk fan.
Okay.
Yeah, I listened to a lot of his from the beginning though. Like he's been
Really?
someone that I've been following for a while, and just because I always felt like his content resonated with me,
Yeah.
I felt like I was like, in it, whereas like I'm an entrepreneur, I need to listen
Yeah.
to this content. And he speaks a lot about like the long game and how it doesn't happen overnight, and you have to realize that. Like he speaks to a lot of many young people, and they're like, I'm 25 and I'm not where I want to be, and he's 25. Like, dude, you're 25. Like, and it just puts everything into perspective, like realizing how young you really are even in your 30s. Like you're just getting started. And I appreciate his content and the things that he has to say, and the podcast, any other things, a lot of audiobooks. Like I said, I'm always tapped into certain things like that. When I go on runs, I need to have something in my ear that's going to stimulate me. And
I just got on the audiobook trend.
Okay.
I like to read the actual book.
Yes.
But there's a lot of times that we have idle time, or we are either listening to music or whatever. And I've taken that time now to switch over to the audiobook.
Yeah.
So it's
nice.
It's so nice. And sometimes you're not actively listening.
But you still are.
You still are, right?
Yep.
And then I found myself like quoting things. I'm like, where did I hear that from? And then I'm like, oh yeah, it was on so-and-so's book. So yeah.
Like recently I just picked up the audiobook from Jay Shetty, Think Like a Monk.
Oh yeah, I haven't done that one yet.
It's a nice audiobook, and his voice is so soothing as well.
Yeah.
And
that doesn't hurt.
No. So like it's a really nice thing to get into, especially when it's something like that book. The topic is very like self-help, like meditation and keeping your mind sound and thinking good things. And it's a nice listen. So if you need something that if you're going to go on a run or a walk, everyone's different. But I do like staying on top of like some of these audio podcasts, like what we're doing right now.
I know, I love it. I know, absolutely love it. So okay, tell me what's the best thing about being an entrepreneur?
The best thing about being an entrepreneur would be, the first thing I would say is the fact that it's always something different.
Yeah.
In my field, it's always something different. I love it. Like I love the fact that on a Monday I can be out there doing a shoot with a corporate client in the office with the CEOs, and then on a Tuesday I'm doing something completely different. I'm writing a script or something for a completely different client. And then on Wednesday, it might be a wedding. Thursday, you might be doing some kind of voiceover for somebody. And it's never the same thing. So for me, that's what keeps it interesting, because it's never the same thing. Even though it's the same conventions where you're saying, oh, it's the corporate, the commercial, the weddings, it's never the same people.
Yeah.
So I think that's what keeps me going. Another good part about it is the fact that you can make your own schedule.
Yeah.
I love that.
I know.
I think that, like, if you want to travel one week, then you can't be booking things that week. And for me, I can shoot a whole bunch of stuff for a month. And then if I wanted to take a week and use that time to edit on the go or remotely, you can just take the footage with you and work remotely. Yeah. And you still feel like you're being productive. Yeah. And even like on the plane, I've been editing sometimes, and just people sitting next to you, they're like, what is she doing?
So obviously Hustle Her is all about giving our listeners some actionable takeaways for, the different segments. So cutting the cord, your particular journey, how you got started. We've heard all of those great things. Yes. So what are some things you would give to entrepreneurs in the making, budding entrepreneurs, someone that may be in a 9-to-5 right now or a traditional working environment? Yeah. What are some of those takeaways that you would give to those people to kind of give them that push or something that worked for you?
What would I tell them? I would say that you have to be patient.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen overnight. And this is like, I feel like the next generation behind us is a very like a microwave overnight. Yeah. I have 1,000 subscribers, so I'm a star.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, it's okay to take your time, pay your dues. You'll get there when you get there. Yeah. You don't need to do anything short-sighted where you're just gonna like have some quick fix and then you think you're the best. Yeah. And just let your time roll, and your time will come where you will amass the clientele, or you will get the gig, or you will become who in your mind you want to become. It all happens in your time. So I would say be patient with yourself. I would say stay creative, talk to different people, be inspired. For me, we can't travel right now, but
I know.
Traveling really does inspire me a lot. Walking around different places, feeling the energies of different people, talking to different people, you just being in different spaces where you can feel like you're picking up new ideas. And I would say also being resilient. You're going to fail in something. Like you're not going to be perfect because we aren't perfect. Right? Humans aren't perfect. So I would say, you know, be resilient. You can bounce back from anything. I mean, you and I both have had conversations about things we would do differently and things that we've learned from. And that's all it really is. It's a learning curve. And you just have to be resilient. Okay. You learn from it, you take it, and you move on, and you don't make that mistake again. Yeah. And that's it. Yeah, I would say. Yeah. There's so many more things. I mean, being curious, keeping your drive. Yeah. Be driven. That's important. Yeah.
Drive is important because you can become quite complacent as an entrepreneur sometimes. And I don't know about you, but for me, like if I'm procrastinating and doing something, and like, you know, when you're working for someone else, you have the luxury of kind of being a little lazy sometimes, right? When you're an entrepreneur, you don't have that. So being driven is so important because there's no one waiting for you at work at 9 a.m. It just isn't happening.
You have to be your own inspiration and all the above, right?
100%.
Because if you're not doing that for yourself, no one else is going to do that.
Nope.
And for me, I like implementing practices like exercising early and trying to because I really do feel like that ignites your day. And then by the time it's time to go to bed, you're ready to go to bed and you sleep better. And it's just, it's implementing the routines that you know will set you up for success and help you feel better about what it is that you do. And just help you to be the best at it.
Well, Lara, I'm so happy that you're here.
I'm very happy to be here.
So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. Guys, Lara is the creative director and founder of LDS Multimedia Company located here in Bermuda. Yes. If you want to find out more information about her, please visit her website at www.ldsmultimedia.com. She's also on Instagram.
Yes, I am. So my Instagram is at Lara D. Smith or at LDS Multimedia.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. This has been so fun.
I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. Lara is a visionary. Her business is flourishing, and she is actually one of the go-to videographers that we use here in Bermuda. Thank you, Lara, for spending the time with us today and allowing my listeners to hear some of the path that you went on. It's so inspiring to know that you did have some things that came into your path that would have discouraged the average person into becoming an entrepreneur, and you actually used that as a step to become the amazing entrepreneur you are today. If you guys want to learn more about Lara and her business, LDS Multimedia, you can find her on her website, lifewithla.com or ldsmultimedia.com. Now that you've listened to our second episode, I hope you guys are enjoying it as much as I am. Please head over and hit the subscribe button and make sure that you guys follow our podcast so you can get the updates for new episodes that are coming up. Also, you can now follow us on Instagram at Hustle Her Podcast. I want to hear from you. If you're enjoying this podcast so far, please like it, please subscribe, and also please leave a comment. I look forward to chatting with you guys next time on Hustle Her Podcast.
I'm a hustler, baby, from a hustler father. Man, I run to the corner, see girl wanna swarm us. Any man wanna harm us, see young girls a clap for your counter, a hustler, baby.